Dear students, welcome you all for the session. This session I am going to explain about security financing. You know, the capital market is a place where the companies can able to mobilize the capital from the market. A security financing provides the way in which the capital can be mobilized from the market. The companies can issue different types of capital in the market, which can be classified into two major categories: issuance of shares and issuance of debentures. So the security financing is the way in which the different instruments are being issued in the market, which can be floated by the companies to collect the required capital from the market. The security, it means the shares, debentures and bonds can be issued in the market. So the issuance of securities is about the way in which the company can mobilize the capital in the market. So in this, the first one is the issuance of shares. So the different types the capital can be mobilized. The share capital can be mobilized by the companies. Company can mobilize the capital in the form of preference capital and equity capital. So the process of issuing preference capital, meaning of preference capital, and what are the benefits the company is going to realize out of issuing the capital in the market is going to explore in this session. So the first one is about the issuance of preference shares. So the forms of issuing preference shares. There are the cumulative preference share, non-cumulative preference share, participating preference share, non-participating preference shares, redeemable preference shares and irredeemable preference shares are the major types. So the preference shares, the type of share capital, these shareholders are getting priority compared to the equity shareholders in the market. So there is a name here, it is mentioned as preference. The preference will be given prior to the ordinary shareholders of the company. So what are the preference are being given to them? It is like before going to pay the dividend to the equity shareholders, the dividend first it is going to be paid to the preference shareholders. And the preference shareholder will get their value of fund. It is like their investment, what they have been invested into the company, is being settled at first during the time of liquidation or when the company is going for a kind of insolvency or other thing. Later only the residual portion only given to the equity shareholders. So like there are some advantages being owned in this preference shares. Normally the preference share is call it as the hybrid method which collect the capital from the market. Why it is called it as a hybrid method? Because the preference shares are having the characteristics of both debentures as well as equity. The preference shares are giving fixed rate of dividend which has the characteristics of debenture. And there is an obligation to the issuer to make or the company to make the payment periodically. In this case, we can say it is going to be a similar compared to the debenture. Compared to the equity, the preference shares are recognized as a share capital. There are advantages and disadvantages are also associated with that. The preference shares are also issued in the market with the different types, like the first one, cumulative, non-cumulative. It's like the dividend is being given to the preference shareholders. Out of the profit, the dividend is going to be given. The fixed rate of dividend is given to the preference shareholders. It can be given, distributed at the time once the company has declared their profit, or it is going to be given or accumulated the value of funds in their account itself. If it is going to be paid over the period of time. If it is paid periodically, that comes under the non-cumulative. If it is a cumulative preference shares, it is going to be accumulated in their account itself. Second one, participating, non-participating preference shares. The participating preference shares, normally the profit, after the profit, it means after settling all the expenses, after making the payment of tax, after the interest and everything, the portion of profit is available. The profit is available for the equity shareholders. But always the company may not distribute all the profit. It means all the net profit, or we call it as profit after tax, not entire profit after tax, is going to be distributed to the equity shareholders. Only a portion of fund is going to be distributed to the equity shareholders, and remaining fund is going to be, it means the remaining profit is going to be kept for the future purpose. So, whatever the portion of fund is going to be distributed to the equity shareholders in the form of dividend, the remaining portion is kept in the form of retention. This type of preference shareholders can also participate. Even first they will receive their dividend prior to the equity shareholders. Even after giving dividend to the equity shareholders, whatever the residual profit is available with the company, the participative preference shareholders can participate in the residual profit. So they will get 2 times the profit, it means the 2 times they might get their dividend. The first time they will get the dividend is about the fixed rate of dividend. If they are the participative preference shareholders, they might again get the additional dividend from the residual portion of profit. If they are not entitled to get the residual portion of profit, they call it as non-participating preference shareholders. Next one, redeemable and irredeemable in nature. Redeemable preference share capital can be redeemed after the period of time. Can be redeemed in 5 years, can be redeemed in 10 years, can be redeemed in 15 years. Can be redeemed in nature. Irredeemable preference share capital are like a perpetual preference shares, perpetual capital. As long as the company exists, the preference shareholders or be there with the company for a period of time, for longer a period of time. So these are the forms in which the preference share capitals are issued in the market. So the merits of preference shares. So it is from the point of view of companies, if they are going to issue the capital, issue the preference capital in the market, what are the merits are associated with that? The first one, the payment of dividend is not a legal obligations of the company. Normally the dividend is going to be distributed out of the profit. If there is a sufficient profit is available with the organization, they are going to distribute the profit. It is applicable for both preference share capital, it means the preference shareholders, as well as for the equity shareholders. So if there is no profit, no dividend is going to be distributed. Even though for the preference shareholders are getting fixed rate of dividend, if there is no profit, the company may not be able to give the dividend at this particular point of time. They will make the payment on later. So it is also easy for the company for issuing preference shares in the market. Second one, it is known as a perpetual loan because the preference shares are hybrid, the combination of debentures as well as the combination of equity. Hence, Normally, if the companies are going to get the loan from the bank for short duration or a medium duration, they need to return back the loan what they have been taken from the bank. But this preference shares are being issued by the companies. It is a perpetual one. As long as the company exists, they can able to repay the fixed rate of dividend. It is purely applicable. The second point is purely applicable for irrevocable or irredeemable preference shares. This particular point is applicable. Those shareholders cannot be able to get back their capital. Whatever the capital that they have contributed, they might receive the fixed rate of dividend from the company. The third important aspect, increase the ability of the company to borrow more in future. Because this is going to be represented as a capital. It is like has a characteristics of debt and equity. It is one of the benefit from the capital. It is call it as it is being recognized as a capital. Once you are calculating the net worth of the company, normally if you are going to get a loan, if you as a company you are going to get a loan from the bank, normally the banker is going to see your net worth. How the net worth is calculated? The net worth is calculated based on the paid up capital plus reserves and surplus of your company. So normally this preference capital is a part of capital. It means even though it is considered as a perpetual loan, it is not reflected as your liability. It is not reflected as a loan. It is reflected as a capital, is going to boost up the net worth of the company. So it is going to be the positive. The company can able to get more loans from the market for their further expansion or for their diversification of business activities. So that can be possible. The next important aspect, the merits are associated with the preference shares. They safeguard the company's payment of higher interest for the loans. Normally the fixed dividend is going to be paid. The dividend is going to be paid out of the profit. So it is not going to pay the higher rate of return or higher interest to the banks in the form of getting loans. So that is going to be the benefit to the company by issuing the preference capital. Next one, not creating any charge on the assets. Normally if the debentures are going to issue, the debentures are going to issue on the basis of the assets held on the company. It means those assets are converted into the asset-backed securities. It's like being issued as a debenture. But if it is like the preference shares, does not create any charge on the asset. Those assets are remains with the owner, or those assets are remains with the company. So the company can have more power in the market. It means the company's earning power is going to increase, borrowing power is going to increase in the market. And increasing the more payout to the equity shareholders. So it is not going to pay the higher interest rate. So it is prevailing market fixed rate of dividend is going to be paid. So it is going to give favorable to the equity shareholders, because the equity shareholders are the real owners of the company. They might get the higher payouts. It means they might get the higher rate of dividend from the company. So that is possible. The preference capital, some preference capital being considered as it can be redeemable in nature after the period of time. Depends on the type, it can be issued in the market. There are some demerits are also associated by issuing the preference shares. So these are like the first one, preference dividend is not deducted as a expenses for taxation. Since you know the expenses what incurred in the business operations have been deducted from the source of income. After that, the profit is arrived. Before the profit, the interest is paid to the debenture holders. Interest is paid to the loan have been taken from the bank. After that, the profit after tax is arrived. Once the profit after tax is arrived, after that the preference dividend is going to be paid. So, the preference dividend is not considered as the expenses of the company. If it is considered as expenses, automatically the company is going to pay the lower tax. But the company, if they have preference capital, is going to increase the tax liability to the company. For example, if the company has the profit after tax of 100 crores, if they are going to give the 20 crores as the preference dividend, it means after the payment of profit, this 20 crore is going to be paid to the preference shareholders. In case if this 20 crore, if I am going to distribute to the debenture holders in case it has been issued as a debenture, or I am going to get the loan from the bank, I am going to pay it in the form of interest. This 20 lakh has been deducted from my profit. It means my profit after tax is not, in this case my profit after tax is not 100 crore, my profit after tax is 80 crore. For that only I have paid a tax. If the tax rate is about 30%, it is going to be a opportunity loss of 6 crores in case if I have issued the preference capital in the market. So this is the first important thing to understand the demerits which associated with the preference shares. Second one, it may reduce the profitability of the organization since the fixed rate of dividend is being get by the preference shareholders. So the portion of profit whatever available, in case the company's earning capacity is low, the majority of the earnings of the company is being taken by the preference shareholders. After that, the residual portion is available for equity shareholders. So this may be the problem or associated by issuing of preference shares in the company. Next important aspects to know about equity shares. The first one, the rate of dividend is not fixed in advance. Since the dividend is paid out of the profit, whatever the profit is available with the organization based on the nature of firm, profitability generated over the period of time, the stability of the company, financial stability of the company. There are a number of factors which determine the dividend given by the company. So the rate of dividend is not fixed in advance, it is being fixed based on the profitability available with the organization. So there is a fluctuations in terms of dividend received by the equity shareholders. And the equity shareholders are called it as the real owners of the company. It means the profit or loss happened in the organization is going to be borne by the equity shareholders. So the risk bearing capacity is more with the equity shareholders, and the equity shareholders are the residual claimants. Equity shareholders are participating in the residual profit. Equity shares are also called it as ordinary shares in the company. And the equity shareholders, they have the voting rights compared to preference shareholders. Preference shareholders not getting any voting rights. They only getting voting rights till the decision of the company is going to affect their dividend or affect their position in the organization. At that time only they have voting rights. Until otherwise, the preference shareholders doesn't have any voting rights to participate in the decision making process of the company. Only the equity shareholders are getting rights. Equity shareholders are getting the voting rights from the company. And they are participating in the real decision making process of the organization. And there is a concept of equity share. We call it as the sweat equity shares. It is issued to the employees, the directors or the promoters at the discount rate, a discount of cash. It is available in the market compared to that. It is low, it is available to the employees, to the directors and other promoters who are associated with the organization is being given. It is called it as a sweat equity share. Recently, the LIC has also announced its IPO. This public offer, they gave the 10% of discount to their policyholders, to their employees who wants to make investment into the market. They give the rights. There are merits of issuing equity shares. These are the rights, the merits from the point of view of the company. The first one, the dividend distributed out of profit only. If there is a loss, the company may not give any dividend to the equity shareholders. So whatever the profit or loss is going to affect the dividend given to the equity shareholders. The second one, it's like perpetual loan. It is similar to that. Consider when there is the profit is available, the dividend is going to be given. The long term, as long as the companies exist, need not to return back the capital, only can provide the dividend. The dividend is also provided only if there is a sufficient profit is available with the organization. It is not creating any charge on the asset being recognized as a capital. It is going to increase wherever adding the capital is going to increase the net worth of the company. So not at all creating any charge on the asset. Automatically the company wants to issue the debentures or the company wants to get the loan from the bank. The issuance of equity capital is not at all going to affect the decision of the company. And it does not have any risk during the period of adversity. If there is a kind of a pandemic situation, even a pandemic, if the debenture holders, the company needs to pay the interest, even though the company may not run for a period of time. But it not require for the equity shareholders to give the dividend because the dividend is paid only out of the profit. And it's also the decision of the company how much the portion of dividend is going to be given to the equity shareholders. Because the equity shareholders may not get the fixed rate of dividend, the equity shareholders get only the residual dividend. The portion of residual profit only they are participating. So there is a fluctuation in the dividend given to them. So there is no fixed commitment to the company by issuing equity shares in the market. The payment of dividend capital, even the payment of capital is not compulsory to the equity shareholders because the equity shareholders are the real owners of the company. There are some demerits are associated with the equity shares, involve high cost of capital. When the company is going to issue or mobilizing the equity capital, there are number of processes which are associated with that. The cost is also high. In terms of acquiring the capital, in terms of retaining the capital, issuance of prospectus, appointment of lead bankers, appointment of book runners, merchant bankers for the issue, collection centers. There are such cost, the statutory cost and administrative cost are more, it is associated by mobilizing the equity capital in the market. Appointment of underwriters, bought out deals. There are number of cost is going to be paid by the companies for issuance of equity share. So that is what can say it is involved the high cost of capital. It is in terms of acquiring cost. Then the second part, the retaining the capital, it is due to the competition is prevailing in the market. It gives some attractive dividend, then only the investors are with the company, or else they want to invest in some other company. So for the investor also, they are in the need to provide the higher rate of dividend. Automatically it involves the high cost of capital. The profitability is going to be reduced to the company over the period of time by making or by providing the dividend, higher dividend to the equity shareholders. The second one, complete control over the company. Because the equity shareholders are the real owner of the company, the decision making process is being initiated, taken by the equity shareholders of the company. So the entire activity is being under the control of equity shareholders. There are adverse situation not being taken, proper decision is going to affect the entire organization. The functionality of entire organization is being affected. Reducing the span of control, if as long as the more the shareholders are there in the company, is going to reduce the span of control. That is what the company wants to keep the control. It increases the promoter's contribution in the company. As long as the retail investor or retail investment level is low, sometimes it may become as over capitalization. With that effect, the company, whatever the capital have been collected, is going to be idle in the organization, is going to not giving any returns. As well, the company is going to be the kind of spending more expenses that may happen with the effect of over capitalization. There are terms of issuance of shares, either in the form of equity share or a preference share, can be issued. The first one, it can be issued at the par rate. It means the face value and the issue price remains constant. The face value of the share is 10 rupee and the issue price of the share is 10 rupee. At that time, it is called it as the issuance at par rate. Not having any restrictions on this. The SEBI does not impose any restrictions on this. The second one, at premium. It means at the level of premium. When shares are issued at premium, at that time, the issue price is higher than the face value. For example, the face value of the share is 10 rupee and it is issued in the market for 250 rupees. So remaining 240 rupees is a premium in which the shares are issued by the company. Under section 78 of Indian Companies Act, provide the guidelines to use the premium. The premium can be used for the issue of fully paid bonus shares to the existing shareholders. Second one, write off the preliminary expenses which are associated with the issue. The preparation of prospectus, the payment of requisite fee to the Securities Exchange Board of India, appointment of intermediaries, like pre-issue expenses, post-issue expenses. For that, the particular purpose, the premium can be used. Write off the commission paid and the discount allowed to the people or the institutions who are associated during the issue. It's like the shares are given at the discount rate to their existing employees under the employee stock option scheme, or given discount to the institutional investors who had invested into your company. For that, the particular purpose, the premium can be used. Redemption of any preference shares or debentures held in the company can be redeemed with the amount held in the organization. It means the total value of premium can be used for this purpose. When the shares are issued at discount, at the time issue price is less than the face value. The face value of the share is 10 rupee, the issue price is 8 rupee. The 2 rupee it is lesser than the face value. The shares are issued in the market. Under section 79 of Indian Companies Act, provide there are certain conditions are imposed when the companies are issuing shares at discount. The first one, the shares are to be issued at the discount must be a class of security which already issued in the market, which the company may not able to issue or the fresh securities in the market. If the securities are being already issued in the market, the same class of security, the same kind of demand for that security is available in the market. By quoting that, they can able to issue the security at discount rate in the market. Second one, must be authorized by the ordinary resolution of the company. During the meeting, it has been get the opinion from the board of directors and the shareholders and unanimously decide the company should issue the shares on discount. Next, must be sanctioned by the company law board for the issuance of shares at discount. Now, there are about the more than 10%. If the dividend, it means a discount is going to be given by the company, must pass on resolution by the company law board. If it must be taken within 2 months of time period, the prospectus must contain the details about the discount and the regulatory classes should be contained on the prospectus. Next one is about the bought out deals. Normally the promoters and merchant bankers who are participating in this process, the issuer and the merchant bankers are participating in this process of bought out deals. So that the first one, the merchant banker purchased a portion of shares at the negotiable price. After a certain period of time, they will sell the shares in the market at the premium price or the prevailing price in the market. And holding cost may be reimbursed by the issuing company, depends upon the agreement mentioned in the bought out deals. The listing company may go for bought out deals. Unlisted company may not be able to go for bought out deals. They can be able to go for the private placements. They may not be able to go for the bought out deals. So the bought out deals being involved with the promoters as well as the merchant bankers. The merchant bankers purchased a portion of shares at the negotiable price in the company. The discount of 10% or 15% or 20%, what it is being offered to the ordinary people or the public issue lesser than the price which quoted by the merchant banker for availing or subscribing the portion of shares issued by the company. And after certain period of time, they wait certain period of time. Once the scheme has launched into the market, after a specific period of time, they might sell their securities which was bought under the bought out deals in the market. They will earn the premium. It means abnormal return or abnormal profit can be realized by the merchant banker. In case if those the waiting period is applicable for the case, for that the holding cost might be reimbursed by the company, appropriate to the opportunity cost in the market. In case if the merchant banker has invested, instead of this particular issue, they have invested in some other investment option, what might be the interest or what might be the rate of return generated by the merchant banker, that is going to be issued, that is going to be given as a holding cost to the merchant banker by the issuing company. Listing company may go for the bought out deals, unlisted company may not be possible. There are few advantages which are associated with the bought out deals. The first one, immediate fund without waiting period can be possible. So it is not like the issuance of prospectus, issuance of application, collection of first call money, second call money, final call money, allotment, sending refund orders. There are a tedious process which associated with the public offering. Whereas the institutional placement, especially for the bought out deals, the fund requirement can be fulfilled immediately. That is what the immediate fund without waiting period. Second one, it is an innovative method of financing. Can be done easily. Sophisticated way of collecting investment from the investor. From the institutional investors, the funds are easily collected. They are suitable for the small and medium sized companies, whereas the larger sized companies, it may not be possible for collecting of that much level of capital in the market. It can be floated. The waiting period is applicable for those instruments. The merchant banker may get the higher rate of return for this, may get the holding cost from the company, may issue the shares or sell the shares in the market once it is listed in that, or it is floated into the market. They might get the premium price for the securities which they bought under the bought out deals. There are few drawbacks are associated with the bought out deals. The first one, promoter may have a less control over the company. Since the other company has purchased the majority of the shares from the company, they might have the control over on your company. Then the merchant banker may suffer a loss if the company not performing well in the market. Say for example, the issue price is 250 rupee. The company has decided to give it to the underwriter for 220 rupees, maybe after the discount. So the merchant banker wait for a period of time according to the norms of SEBI. The companies, it means the institutional investor may not be able to liquidate once it is floated into the market, not possible. So they need to wait at least for a period of 6 months. After that, they can be able to redeem the securities or redeem the value of money from the market, or can be able to sell it in the market. So at that time, after the 6 months, if the company is not performing in the market, their market prices are around 120 rupee or 130 rupee. It's going to be the huge loss to the merchant banker when they are making investment into the market, especially for investing into this particular company. So these are the drawbacks which are associated with the bought out deals. Next one is issuance of debentures. So the debentures are issued on the basis of asset held in the organization. Based on the value, the company can be able to issue the debentures. There are different types of debentures can be issued by the company. Nature of debenture is giving the fixed rate of interest to its holders. We call it as a debenture holders. Debenture is a document issued an evidence of debt due from the company without change on the asset of the company. They might change the legal title of the company, or time it may not have the change in the legal title of the company. That might happen for the issuance of debentures. It is a certificate issued by the company under its seal acknowledging the debt due for its holders, debenture holders of the company. So the issuance of debenture is on this basis. Next one, according to the Companies Act, the term debentures, which includes debenture stocks, bonds or any other securities of the company, whether constituting a charge on the asset of the company or not. It might change the legal title or not. It means either it might create a charge on the asset or not. Normally the asset can be, it means those debentures are packed with the asset, might be having a less interest rate in the market, whereas it is not charging on the asset might be available in the market with a higher interest rate. Since the kind of instruments are issued on the basis of a promise given by the company, not creating any legal charge on the asset. So on the basis, the debentures can be issued in the market. There are types of debentures. The first one, naked debenture, mortgaged debenture, redeemable debentures, irredeemable debentures, convertible debentures, non-convertible debentures are the major types of debentures. The first one, naked debenture, does not carry any charge on the asset. It is only based on the promise given by the company. The debenture holders or the investors are investing into the debenture. That the debenture is called it as naked debenture. Second one, mortgage debenture. It is secured with the mortgage. It is secured with the mortgages either in full or partial on the value of asset. Next one, redeemable debenture. It can be redeemed after a certain period of time when the instrument is issued in the market. 5 years, 8 years or 10 years, the period which has been mentioned. After the period, the instrument can be redeemed in nature. Irredeemable debenture cannot be redeemed. It's a perpetual debenture, perpetual loan. The company can enjoy the benefit out of that. Only can get the funds at the time of liquidation or winding up of the company. Convertible debentures, after a certain period of time, the debenture can be converted into ordinary shares or equity in the company, which the conditions are mentioned. If those conditions are fulfilled, the debenture holder can be able to convert the debentures into equity shares. Non-convertible debentures are which cannot be converted into equity share, which remains as the debenture for a period of time, or it is perpetual loan for a period of, it means end of the period of such organization. Difference between shares and debentures. Shares are the part of capital, either a preference capital or it's a equity capital. But the debentures are considered as loan to the company. Debenture holders are outsiders of the company, not associated with the company. Second part of the difference is the shareholders are the owners of the company, whereas the debenture holders are the creditors. Until the repayment of loan, they are as a creditor. If the repayment is done, they are not associated with the organization. The shareholders are having, the equity shareholders are having a voting rights. They can be able to participate in the annual general meeting of the company and participating in the decision making process of the company. Whereas the debenture holders may not be able to participate in the annual general meeting, may not have the rights to vote against the decision taken by the organization, may not be possible. The shareholders, where the dividend is paid to them out of the profit, but the debenture holders are getting the fixed rate of interest. Either the profit is going to be given to the equity shareholder. If the abnormal profit, the abnormal dividend is going to be given to them. Depends on the nature of the firm. The growth firm or it's a declining firm or maybe a normal firm. Depends on the decision. Depends on the type of dividend policy adopted by the company. The dividend will be given to the shareholders. Whereas the kind of decisions not being associated with the debenture holders are entitled to get fixed rate of dividend. Shareholders, equity shareholders are the residual claimant of the capital. They can make the residual claim out of the capital, but at the time of liquidation, but can take the point of view of debentures or the debenture holders can claim prior to that, prior to the equity shareholders, prior to the preference shareholders, the claim made by the debenture holders. And the shareholders does not charge on any asset. So it is considered as only as a capital being contributed by them, but the debenture holders, the debentures are charged on the asset. So the securities which are issued to them on the basis of collateral assets available in the organization. The shares, the dividend is not paid out of the capital, only paid out of the profit generated by the organization. But sometimes if the debenture holders, if the company may not be able to pay the interest out of their earning capacity, they can be able to provide from the capital also. That can be possible because it's a fixed liability to the business organizations. And the fluctuating returns, because the stable return may not be able to achieve, because since the profitability is going to tend to change different time period, depends on the demand prevailing in the market, the type of competition. There are a number of factors influencing the profitability of the firm. So it depends on the profit the dividend is given. So the dividend is fluctuating. The high level of fluctuations may happen the dividend given by the company. Whereas the fixed returns, fixed interest rate is being given to the debenture holders. Shareholders, the control over the management. They can have the control over the management. They can take the decisions in the organization. Expansion of the organization or diversification. There are such decisions, strategic decisions in which the shareholders are participating. Whereas the debenture holders does not have control over the organization. They are not participating in any strategic decisions taken by the organizations. Whereas the shares are irredeemable, it is irredeemable in nature, majority of the case. Like equity shares are the nature of irredeemable. Preference shares can have the option of redeemable or irredeemable. Irredeemable or the perpetual capital to the company, perpetual loan to the company. Whereas the debentures are in nature of redeemable, can be redeemed after a certain period of time, 5 years, 10 years, like the period of time in which it can be redeemed in nature. The restriction to issue the discount, especially to the shareholders, but there is no such kind of restriction to issue the discount, especially to the debenture holders, because it's the rights of the company can issue the debenture, whereas the restrictions to issue the discount, it is applicable for the issuance of shares at discount. What circumstances the company is going to issue can pass the special resolution under that. So these are the basic differences that are associated with the shares and the debentures. There are merits of debentures. The first one, provide the funds for the company for the specific period of time. So need fund for developing purpose. The fund is needed for 5 years, 10 years, like a period in which the debentures can be issued in the market. It's like the fixed commitment for 10 years the fund is needed. The 10 years redeemable debentures can be issued in the market. Debenture holders can able to redeem the value of debenture after the 10 years, after the 5 years or after the 15 years can be possible. So for a fixed time period, the company can able to enjoy the benefit in terms, can able to take the further business activities without any hurdles for getting the fund from the market. And the debentures does not have any control over the management, because the debenture holders are the outsiders of the company. The debenture holders are called it as creditors to the company. Until the further payment to the debenture holders, they are associated with the company. After that, there is no association between the company and the debenture holder. That is what does not have any control over the assets of the management or the management decisions not being taken by the debenture holders. The equity shareholders will get the higher rate of dividend, whereas the fixed rate of dividend it means the fixed rate of interest is given to the debenture holders. There are demerits are associated with the debenture issue. The time liability for making the payment of interest is a difficulty to the company. It's like there may be the company like the normal firm or a growth firm not issue for giving the kind of interest on time, but for the kind of the declining firm, the firms they are facing a kind of cash crunch. They might have an issue for making payment on time. So it is a drawback while issuing the debentures, like time liability for paying interest. Non-repayment or non-payment of interest leads to the consequences. Even a debenture holders can approach the court for getting further remedies on this matter. So that can be possible under that. So the non-repayment of interest is not normally allowed by the company. Company can make the payment on time. Not suitable for the fluctuating income. It is only the steady income being provided. Even the company earns the abnormal profit, debenture holder does not get anything out of that. Debenture holders are the outsiders of the company. They may not be able to participate in the decision, may not be able to participate in the profitability of the company. They are always as outsiders of the company. They are having the creditors to the company until the further repayment of the amount to the debenture holders. So these are the merits and demerits that are associated with the debenture issues.